Welcome to the Warnes Way, Mr. Jack Boon. Thank you so much for joining me.
Mate, thank you very much for having me on.
No, I reached out because I remember back in 2020 when you first reached out, because you just saw me do the show SAS and you reached out and you said you'd love the fitness, love the gym. And then I connected the dots when you said our dads used to play together. And I said, oh my God, no shit. And now here we are 5 years later and it's just cool to have you here. So thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you for having me, man. I remember that moment. That's why when you sent me a video message the other day, checking in, inviting me on, it felt a little bit nostalgic. Like we'd gone back that 5 years ago where I did see you on the SAS, and specifically it was my mum that brought my attention to it after your interrogation interview.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking after watching it just how relatable it was for me as an individual, given that there's not many people that have been in our unique shoes growing up, you could say.
So would you say you've definitely, because I'm not sure if you've met any of the other sons that played for Australia, but would you say we've got a lot in common in terms of when you used to go to school, people going, oh, you're only David Boon's son, or you're this and you're that?
Mate, absolutely. I've met many. I've played against in the underage stuff against Mitch Marsh, who's obviously now representing the country. We were in the Australian Under-19s Academy together where there was Alistair McDermott as well.
Whereabouts was that?
That was at is it Alan Borders ground and set up there? I can't remember, but it was in Queensland.
Yeah.
And Alex Carey was in there as well. Not that he's a son of, but that was that same era. So, you know, it's in Tassie though, it was kind of under a magnifying glass, given that I was kind of one of one. There was not many other, I guess, famous sporting figures or, you know, well-known public figures coming out of the little Apple Isle.
Did your dad debut? Would have been early 80s?
Would have been
70s?
Early mid 80s, I reckon. Yeah, early 80s.
And when were you born?
Me, 91.
91. Okay. So do you reckon when you were going to school and everything, you weren't really focused on sort of cricket or anything like that? Were you just doing your own thing, or?
Mate, school through early years was interesting because we were hopping around a little bit. I was actually born in Lonnie. And then after Dad finished his, I guess, national duties and retired from international cricket, he then was playing county cricket over in Durham.
Yeah, because he's a referee now, isn't he?
Not anymore. He's actually just retired.
Okay.
But he was a referee, and before that he was a selector.
Yeah.
So yeah,
for the Australian squad.
For the Australian squad. So he was playing county cricket for Durham over there for a 3-year period. So we would spend 6 months in England and then 6 months in Australia. And we rotated that for a 3-year period. And obviously cricket being a summer sport meant that there wasn't a whole heap of school going on for me, and with the moving around. And yeah, we went back to Hobart and that's where I finished my schooling. But yes, absolutely, to your experiences, very similar, is there was a very obvious awareness on my behalf that people knew who my father was.
Yeah. Did it ever sort of, and I'm not sure if frustrate's the right word because I've spoken about this a lot. I said my whole life I always wanted to just be known as Jackson, and people would always only go, oh, you're Shane Warne's son. But then as I've gotten older, like, do you know how cool that is?
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool to say Shane Warne's my dad, and I'm sure you're the same. You're so proud of your family and of your dad. And did you ever struggle with just wanting to be your own person sort of growing up or at school, just wanting to be known as Jack, or wasn't?
No, absolutely. I might even still struggle with it. I was always under the magnifying glass of that. And in a way, I think, you know, my old man's a very modest character, only says what needs to be said.
Yeah.
And I guess he passed on the importance of, I guess, that modesty and not being big-headed or a name dropper was the word that was often used. And because of the unwanted attention that probably came with the surname, you know, I did my very best to slip under the radar without that being highlighted, especially when meeting new people. But it was inevitable. That was always going
in
to
some
come.
way, shape or form get brought up.
It was going to get brought up, absolutely. And it's not that I felt shame, maybe a sense of embarrassment, maybe just a sense of just like overlooking anything to do with you as an individual with your identity. And it's only probably come about in maybe the last 4 or 5 years where I've actually shifted from sort of trying to stick my head in the sand and hide away from that fact, out of whatever fear that may be of, someone else's opinion of me or, whatever bullshit that comes, is to now that, it's fucking awesome. And I couldn't be prouder of who my dad is and what he's achieved. And, I think it was actually through COVID, I found myself on Samsung TV. There's a channel called Cricket Gold.
Yeah.
And it's just playing 24/7 repeats of the golden era, which was
the 90s.
The generation that our dads were playing together. And I pretty much rewatched his whole career, and I enjoyed it just so much. Like I am his biggest fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that I actually, it would have been last year. I think Fox Cricket did a special for his birthday, and I was just at home, turned on the TV, and I just watched it for an hour and a half. And it just was, I just thought so cool. And, I wish, obviously Dad, I told him all the time, but I just wish Dad would have got to have seen this version of me, if that makes sense. So this version of me could tell him, mate, like, well done. I'm so proud of you. All these just normal things that I probably would have said to him my whole life, but just with this version.
Yeah.
Because this version of me is just a lot more understanding. It's a lot more sort of grateful. I can appreciate how hard he worked and the sacrifices. Like I'll bring up the Shane Warne legacy. I bring that up because if Dad didn't make all the sacrifices his whole life, if he didn't work so hard at his craft and, commit 365 days of the year to bowling leg spin, then we probably wouldn't have been able to have the reach we've got. Dad wouldn't have the reputation he's got. He wouldn't have the awareness. People wouldn't know him as much. And it's only because of that craft and how hard he worked that we're able to actually sort of leverage that and use it to save lives.
Absolutely.
I think it's pretty amazing that sport has really done that.
Yeah.
Were you always, when you were growing up, was sport one of your biggest things, or?
Mate, for sure it was.
Because I know you love the gym. That's how we first connected, through the gym.
Yeah, but the gym was sort of what I fell back on, when sport didn't work out. So I think any young boy who has a healthy relationship with their father looks up to them like they're their absolute idol and superhero. And there is nothing that you want to do more than follow in the footsteps of your father and do the same things. So, the dream was always to play cricket for Australia, but
So you had that dream, you wanted to play?
Fully, 100%. And it's, again, only now as an adult and being able to reflect on those things, that was a pretty daunting task to, live up to someone who holds records to this day.
Of course.
As one of the best batsmen that Australia's ever produced. And if you look at the percentages of that working out, it's pretty slim.
Well, I know, I'm not sure the exact number your dad debuted at, but Dad debut is the 350th person to play for Australia. That's not many people.
No.
So I'm not sure, your dad would have been even earlier than that.
A little bit before that.
Yeah, a little bit earlier than that. So for you to have that goal and still want to strive to be, it's an elite category.
Yeah, and mate, it was weird, like, I'm sure you've got memories of being in the Australian cricket room, dressing room, as a kid growing up, and, you're interacting with all the players and we're getting to meet certain people. And it's, an example is John Howard. And it's like, I remember being in the Sydney cricket dressing room. I think it was in the series where Steve Waugh scored 100 on the last ball of the day. Might have been I can't remember, but it was a very monumental moment. And, those people come up and they shake your hand. Oh, Jack, nice to meet you. You're going to play cricket for Australia when you grow up. Am I going to say as a 10-year-old, no, Mr. Howard, I'm not?
Yeah.
And that's one of 1,000 examples of where, you've experienced that. So in many ways, I kind of felt like the choice had been taken away from it. It was the only thing.
You thought it was the only
It was
thing
the only thing that was on the table for me.
Yeah.
So to get to a point where that didn't work out was pretty tough.
Yeah. And when did you know, okay, this is not going to work out for me? Was it after the under-19s academy?
It was probably around 16, 17 years of age where I stopped playing cricket. So towards the end of my schooling as well, I'd obviously been through some of the underage representative stuff, had been playing first grade cricket at the University Cricket Club with Tim Payne as the captain of that team at the time, who obviously went on and
he captained
Australia.
Yep.
Jimmy Faulkner was in that side. Ben Hilfenhaus.
They're all Tasmanian locals as well. Aren't they? Yeah.
So, a lot of really good players, and it was cool to have experienced that and been a part of that side as a young fella. But again, reflecting on it all, perhaps I maybe got pushed up the ranks a little bit too early, so to speak. And I guess it was never a talent issue. Like I've spoken with my dad about it, and he'll confess himself that I have more ability and skill than what he did. But then you speak to what it takes to make it at the highest level in a sport like cricket. If I'm quoting Dad correctly, I think when he talks about Test cricket, he'll testify that 90% of Test cricket is mental. And it wasn't a talent issue. It wasn't a skill issue. And I was mentally fucked, to be honest, because, even in the schoolyard at lunchtime, if someone got you out, it was like they'd won an Olympic trophy. And that was something that they got to sort of pin on their wall. And, it just, I felt that every time that I had a cricket bat in my hand on a Saturday or a Sunday in the middle of the ground was an overwhelming amount of fear
and pressure
and anxiety. And it was just the internal dialogue was like, just don't get out, don't get out, don't get out. And I think through any sport, whether it's been cricket, whether it's been football, I'm aggressive by nature. But then that sort of played into cricket as well. It's like you're trying to hit everything for 4 or 6 because of just the escape of that anxiety. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly a story that I can relate to, exactly like what you just said. And I'm lucky enough that I had a really good group of mates, so they probably were never thinking this. But like every time we'd be playing beach cricket or cricket at school and it was my turn to bowl, all of a sudden the conversations I'm having in my head is like, oh, just don't get hit for 6 or just bowl a decent ball. And then I end up just having so much negative self-talk that after 2 or 3 balls, I don't want to bowl anyway. And probably those battles I was having with myself, and Dad never, ever pressured me into playing cricket. He never sort of wanted me to follow in his footsteps. He just wanted me to be happy. He said, look, he probably wanted me to play AFL more than cricket, to be honest. And I think that was because, for the Saints, because I think that was his dream. But, though it was the conversations I was just always having in my head, and it probably wasn't even real. Like my friends that I was thinking, oh, that's what they're thinking or saying about me. I never spoken to them about it. They probably were never thinking it, but it was just that negative self-talk.
Yep.
Have you got any sort of strategies that you use to beat negative self-talk?
Back then, no. I had none of them. I think, to your point, whether it was real or not, my reality was that all eyes were on me, and I was a disappointment, and I was failing and letting everyone down. And I think the most important thing that we get taught about sport is that it's meant to be fun.
Yeah.
And cricket had very much become something that was no longer fun for me. And, I'm very grateful for a lot of the coaching and the support that I had in terms of, one-on-one net sessions over at Bellerive with Tim Coyle, but I didn't need another net session.
Yeah.
What I probably needed was a sports psychologist.
Yeah.
But back in that time, we're talking nearly 20 years ago now. anxiety and sports psychology wasn't
Not really a topic.
Not really a topic.
Yeah. It was sort of toughen up and
Exactly, but understanding that now from my life experiences and just the modern advancements and my field of work in around sport, health, nutrition, and performance, to a T, that's what was going on. And I think it would have been fantastic for me to have been able to explore that through conversation.
Yeah.
And also perhaps understanding things to do with nervous system regulation and even simple breath work techniques, if you will. I think there could have been a lot of things that could have been handled or done differently to help me in those times.
Have you ever, for fun, picked up a cricket bat recently with all the knowledge you know now about how to stay calm and just with your breath, all of that? Have you ever just, for fun, I want to go play local game now and see if these strategies work?
Mate, I haven't. I think I've been scared off for good,
really?
In a way. I've probably had a few goes in the backyard with people under the influence of a few beers, which is very effective at relaxing the stresses, I suppose. But no, nothing serious at all.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm looking forward to is I've just had a kid.
Yep.
I just had my first boy, and he's 3 months old, and he actually has his first Grey Nichols cricket bat sitting at home from my old man, ready to go. So I look forward to having the opportunity to pick it back up and play with him. Yeah.
So I'll just go back a step. When you knew cricket wasn't for you anymore, is that when you fell back to the gym? Because I know you said the gym was like a fallback.
I obviously played cricket in the summer and I played footy in the winter. Enjoyed my footy, had a bit of a dash at footy as well, and had already been in the gym just from interest in it, I guess.
So you're always sort of training even when you were playing cricket?
I think I started going to the gym probably around 14, 15 years old. And to be honest, maybe I don't know where that came from, whether it's being on those long flights to England at 9 years old and watching R-rated movies that you shouldn't be watching when everyone else is sleeping, and your perception of masculinity and violence and whatever it may have been. But again, in football, my early experiences, even as, under 13s, was that, in Tassie as well, beautiful place, but it has a lot of, I guess you could call it lower socioeconomic demographics. Yep. And, here I was in junior football playing other teams that wanted to take my head off.
Yeah.
And I've never met these people before. I have no idea who they are, but they all knew who I was.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting my hand up saying I'm a victim, poor me. Don't get me wrong. I loved every little minute of it. But it was a reality of my circumstances, and I felt a driving need to be physically strong to look after myself. Again, in footy, lessons from the old man of very few words, but the advice that he gave me when I started playing footy as a young kid was the last person that pulls out, the person who pulls out of the contest is usually the one that gets hurt. And so, yes, Dad, head down, bum up, and straight lines was my strategy. So, when schooling sort of finished and sport hadn't worked out, I guess I was fortunate that I'd already been in the gym for a number of years. I share the same genetics as him. We were pretty strong.
Yeah.
And, it was a natural path for me to fall back on when that hadn't worked out, that was still not at a desk.
Yeah.
Not an academic. And, by that time, people sort of started asking you for, tips and advice and whatever it may be. And it was just a very natural thing to fall back into.
And this is all still while you're living in Tasmania?
Yep.
So when did you move to Melbourne?
Not long after I finished school. So I think 3 years after I finished school, I moved to Melbourne. So 2012.
And is that when you opened, if you don't mind me talking about it, Jungle headquarters?
No, I didn't open Jungle then. I actually had...
Because you're quite, one thing I really like about you is you're very knowledgeable, and you talk about the science of just training and nutrition and supplements. It's not as simple as moving weights A to B. You're actually you go into depth of why this is important, why this movement's good. And I think that's really important now, because so many more people are, and I've definitely noticed the shift since COVID, are looking after their fitness and health. And so with having somebody like you to actually look for advice, it's great.
I definitely wasn't sciencey or very good at school, again, to highlight that. But fitness and health and
Just
sport is
passionate
something
about
that
it.
I've always been passionate about. And this is definitely not a black and white statement. But again, if we look at the reputation of maybe my old man, and he's famous for playing cricket and he loves a beer.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was in a way, it was kind of my way to be my own individual.
Yeah.
That was separate from that couldn't be labeled, hey, you're only this because of your old man. But I had some circumstances with, you know, a member of the family and actually a high school girlfriend that developed an eating disorder and some pretty deteriorated mental health as a consequence of that, which to my young, immature mind was very confusing, and I didn't understand how that could be happening to young, beautiful women that by no means needed to lose any weight. So I guess that was the ignition to the passion and the interest to actually look a little bit deeper and start having a better understanding of nutritional sciences and figure out whether or not there was anything that I could do to help others in that circumstance or prevent it from happening again. And I guess that's the, you know, that's what opened that can, so to speak.
So would you say nutrition and diet would be probably the most important thing for your mind and for your body and for your mental health to help things like with what you said, anxiety? Like have you, since doing all this research about nutrition and training, has that helped you tackle anxiety and all of that?
Yeah, I think mental health is a multifactorial equation that is nutritional, it's psychological, it's environmental. And, you know, I think to perform at the highest level, you need to address all three of those factors. But when we look at, you know, the nutritional components, we need to understand that neurotransmitters, so the brain chemicals that are responsible for the way that we think, act, and feel, they're not just permanently there. They constantly require ingredients, those ingredients being amino acids, specifically coming from protein and micronutrients to actually, I suppose, develop them and build. And then, you know, on the other side of that as well, we need the right cofactors in place to metabolize and recycle those neurotransmitters as well. So when there's an imbalance or an insufficiency of those nutrients, then you can start to suffer from a cognition and psychological point of view as well, you could say.
Would you say the most important then protein or nutrition would be red meat? Because is that where you can get every single micronutrient apart from vitamin C is from red meat?
From a nutrient density point of view, it's pretty hard to go past red meat, despite what any of the tabloids or anything will tell you. Like, you know, we were always told growing up that, hey, eat your vegetables.
Yeah.
Because they're full of your vitamins and minerals. And I often ask clients that, hey, why do you eat your fruits and veggies? And that's the answer that typically gets, you know,
that's what
responded.
they were told growing up.
Yeah, but if we compare the nutrient density and the bioavailability of vitamins and minerals from vegetables versus red meat, the red meat is a very, very clear winner.
Yeah.
So, yeah, red meat for sure. And, you know, you could probably also argue oysters are maybe the most nutritional thing on the planet when it comes to zinc especially.
And would that be because the nutrition you get out of something that is so small, that's why it is, like, would you say more dense than red meat? Or has it actually got more nutrients in oysters than in red meat?
Yeah, just from a nutrient density point of view, how much you're getting for the smallest quantity of food, oysters are pretty hard to beat.
So what's in an oyster?
Zinc particularly.
Zinc particularly.
Yep.
And why is zinc very important?
Well, zinc's probably second in demand to magnesium as the most crucial, I suppose, cofactor in the body. It goes towards building so many things, which includes the neurotransmitters. It includes hormones like testosterone, for example. Yep. It includes skin health. You know, it's a part of your digestive system. The list goes on. And
magnesium's good for everything, isn't it? It's good for sleep, bone density.
It does, and you know, a lot of people use magnesium, which is great, but what needs to be understood is that magnesium is sort of like a family name, right? There's so many different types of magnesium that do different things. And if we're looking for, I guess, mitigating stress or improving sleep quality, then it's really important that we have a magnesium type that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So those two forms are magnesium glycinate and magnesium threonate, whereas a lot of the over-the-counter magnesiums that you might see in the pharmacy, for example,
pills or in powder form.
yeah, are usually quite, I guess, cheap forms, which are oxides or something like that, which is typically one of the main ingredients in a laxative, right?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to improve your sleep, you do need to make sure that you're using the right type.
So what type of, if you don't mind me keep talking about this,
fine.
what type of food has a lot of magnesium in it? Is there a certain sort of food that you can eat that has a lot or not really?
That's one of
Because
the...
I've only ever known magnesium to be in like a pill form that you take before bed or something.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
But I'm also, sorry to cut you off, I'm a bit of like a gym bro with this stuff. So I'm learning as I'm talking to you now because I'd like to think I'm pretty knowledgeable, but I'm more just a casual.
Mate, I'm a bit of a gym bro
guy.
myself. There's nothing that I know that I've ever created. I've just learned from listening to people a lot smarter than what I am. But when we look at magnesium, it's again, I think supplementation is such a big part of the health and fitness world, right? And everyone wants to know what supplements should I be taking. And I'm very hesitant to give a blanket recommendation to people on what they should be taking because it is so individual, right? And even I talked about the benefits of zinc, and a lot of men read about the benefits of zinc and that low zinc could mean that you've got low testosterone, and no man wants low testosterone, right? So they start taking bolus amounts of zinc, and what needs to be understood is that then zinc competes with copper, and then maybe you've got now you're copper deficient, and that can come with a whole bunch of other issues, right? So without testing, you're really guessing, but magnesium is definitely one of the ones that I would be comfortable to say, hey, nearly everyone would do really well from having some supplementation, magnesium supplementation, because we do struggle to get optimal amounts of it from our food alone. Food always first is where I'm looking to get micronutrients.
So that would be your number one recommendation first. If somebody's trying to either lose weight or live a healthier lifestyle, you always look at their diet first before what supplements to add in or...
For sure, because as it says, it's a supplement. It should supplement the diet and the lifestyle. And, when we look at the magnesium specifically, is why we struggle to get that is a little bit to do with soil degradation from mass farming practices and so forth there. So, yeah, magnesium's a good one for across the board.
And so would you, because I love my eggs. I love my eggs, but I've had lots of people say I have too many. Sometimes I have 6, sometimes I have 4, but is that too many, do you think?
No issue with that.
No issue with eggs? So eggs are a superfood?
I think so.
So why is there so much sort of misinformation on why eggs are bad?
Oh, welcome to the world of nutrition. It's conflicting information everywhere you look.
Yeah.
And
so you think that's sort of for big pharma or someone just to...
Well, if we look at the government food pyramid, which is the recommendation that still, is delivered across the board in whether it be schools and even universities, it's pretty much upside down.
Yeah.
And if we look at what promoting that style of eating does, is it, if anything, it just fuels the economy with, agriculture and all that sort of stuff. So
I think that's why fast food's so popular now. One, because it's obviously so cheap, and that's why, and then two, it obviously tastes so good. But I also think that's why there's so much mental health is because of the poor diet. It's because of too much social media or too many, distractions. I think if we sort of looked back to like a primal way of living, which is sort of what you practice with, I've seen you have big steaks on big barbecues and everything like that, and you're very traditional with your family. But I think if we all lived a bit like that and sort of thought, how would we live 40, 50, 60 years ago, would be a lot happier.
Yeah, I mean, mate, so many people overcomplicate nutrition now, and we get very caught up in a calorie counting society, and I think calorie counting has its time and place, and it's a really valuable experience for people to go through to improve their nutritional literacy, if you will, to get a greater understanding on what sort of calories and macronutrients are in the foods that they're choosing. But it is quite an unsustainable strategy to be thinking that you're going to track the calories for the rest of your life. And if you ask yourself this question, did it once live or breathe, or did it come from the ground? If the answer is yes to those questions, then 99% of the time it's going to get the tick of the approval. Yeah. And if you manage to consume, let's say, even 80% of the calories of your diet from foods that said yes to both of those questions, whole foods, exactly, then you're going to be doing far better than the majority of the population, because you're absolutely right. We are in a very nutrient poor but calorie dense environment with our food because of, I guess, the highly processed and packaged stuff that has a lot of sugar, that doesn't provide much satiety, is very easy for you to consume, is very palatable on the tongue. It stimulates neurotransmitters, making you want more and more and more, and it is addicting by nature. So, you know, that those foods can be a slippery slope that eventually lead to metabolic dysfunction, disease, gut permeability. And then if we go full circle, we spoke about the neurotransmitters in our brain that make us feel good, concentrate, perform, focus, whatever it may be. They're built in the stomach. So if you've got inflammation in the stomach, then there's no way you're going to be optimally building neurotransmitters.
So didn't they say when you combine saturated fats and carbs or processed carbs, I think it gets the same dopamine receptors in your brain as some certain drugs? Would that be, because like, for example, I've seen people talk about like a pizza, your brain, how excited it gets. It might be different for everybody else, whatever their sort of junk food is, but your brain gets so excited about, oh my God, this is what food we're having. And then you eat it and then you feel so shit after. It's almost like that crash that you have when some people take drugs. It's like you go up here and then you just crash.
Well, it's a dopamine thing, right?
Yeah.
It's the pleasure center of the brain. So when, you know, you pick your poison, some people get their dopamine kicks through notifications on social media. Some of them get them through drugs. Some of them get them through fast food. It's all sort of accessing that same dopamine pathway to give them a very short-term, temporary bit of pleasure for no long-term gain. And we know that I guess, you know, when we are able to delay gratification, those dopamine highs tend to last a lot longer.
Yeah, and I reckon one of the best sort of dopamine high, like the most euphoric feeling I've ever had in my whole life was back in 2020 when I did SAS. I was only on the show for about, I think it was 8.5 or 9.5. I think it was 8.5 days. And it was like the shittest experience of my life, but also the best experience. I learned so much about myself. I tried all these new foods. I got out of my comfort zone with socializing. I was cold every single day. I was hungry every single day. I was dehydrated every single day. I was doing physical challenges I really couldn't prepare or train for. And sort of when I got VW'd from the show and I handed my number and I was like, okay, that's finished. No drugs, no alcohol, no anything. I was on pure euphoria and it was the best feeling I've ever had. And I reckon that was just from going through something that was so shit and that I'd trained so hard for, that I had such a natural high of dopamine that as soon as I got that feeling, I tried to chase that feeling in everything I did.
You've come a long way since then.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed seeing you blossom's probably not the right word, but you've just, you know, you're reaching heights of success and confidence, and it's obvious and it's good to see.
Thank you. That's definitely, it only sort of changed after the state memorial when I spoke about, and I've said it a lot of times, but when I spoke about something that was so personal and emotional to me and so sad in such a public setting, if I can get off that stage and be okay, well then I should be okay with everything else, because I look at that as probably one of the hardest things I'll ever have to do in my life. I hope I never have to do anything like that ever again. Yeah.
I was sitting front row to that and couldn't imagine being in your position and being able to hold it together and talk about the death of my father.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Thank you. And that was just like the amount of strength that gave me after I did that. It's like, if I can do that, I can sort of do anything. And that's sort of been my belief. But going back to calories, what would be a reason then to count calories apart from bodybuilders either trying to put on or lose weight or muscle?
Yeah.
Would you recommend counting calories then to your average Joe? Like to somebody that just works, you know, a normal job, goes to the gym 3-4 times a week, is trying to live a little bit healthier. Would you recommend counting calories to them, or would you just say focus on a whole food diet?
No, for sure. It's like, again, it requires some context to the individual, what their needs, what sort of, you know, health status are they in? Are they out of shape? Are they in shape? What is their relationship with food? But as I said before, I think it's a very good, at the very least, it's a very good observational experience for someone to go through to get a bit of insight and feedback into what they're actually doing, because we do have our own biases as well. And, you know, if you've never done it before, then sure, I think it's a great thing to do. And what I'd recommend people to do is take a food diary, log everything that you eat and drink and consume for somewhere between 3 and 7 days. Right? Be very honest with it. Make sure that you're weighing out those foods so that we can be accurate with our predictions, and then go and put it into MyFitnessPal, because I've seen, this has even been shown in studies as well that people are inherently actually pretty bad at tracking calories because
leave out a few
they leave out some
Tams
things. Yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of shame around
people
having an inability to control their nutrition or being out of shape. And so they do. Their biases take over and whatever it may be. So be as honest as you can with it, and then you'll have some really good insights. And then at least you've got some data to reflect through and go, okay, well, shit, I really spilled over there.
Yeah.
And, a big part of that in a lot of people's diets is through liquid calories. So whether that be through soft drinks or cordials or fruit juices, right? They think they're doing something really healthy because they're drinking orange juice.
Yeah.
And all they're doing is taking in, 60, 70 grams of carbohydrates that they probably don't need first thing in the morning, along with, foods that have been traditionally told or typically told that is breakfast food with a lot of cereals and oats and whatever it may be, So I think everyone should do it. If you've got interest in bettering your health and fitness and you've never done it before, what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
You should do it, get some insights into how much you're actually consuming, and then, you can start your journey on making improvements.
And talking from my own personal experience so I've always sort of, when I finished school, got into the gym and sort of always floated around that 77 to 80 kilos. Mm-hmm. Wasn't ridiculously strong, was quite lean, had a bit of vascularity. I was happy with it. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what I just maintained for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as Dad passed away, I would eat the exact same foods, but all of a sudden I was 96 kilos in 3-4 months, heaviest I've ever been. Was looking at photos of my face. I blew up. I caught my friends and family, called me Fat Jack. I hated how I looked, but then sort of didn't really address it, still trained. And then it wasn't at the start of this year where I was like, nah, you know what? I've done all these things on camera and I hate looking back at those photos because I'm just embarrassed. Mm-hmm. I want to make a change. Jeans are getting tighter. T-shirts I just don't like it. Mm-hmm. So I started to make a change and I started counting calories. I took everything proper, weighed my chicken, weighed my rice, did everything proper.
Great.
And I did that, I reckon, for about 2 months or around 8 to 10 weeks. And that 8 to 10 weeks, I've actually never felt so much happier tracking everything because I knew what I was putting into my body was the right thing. I was doing everything properly. And I'm somebody that needs like either routine or structural to look at something. And when I was stepping on the scales every morning and know it was working, that just made me really motivated. Yeah. But now I've got myself into a position where I'm 80, 81 kilos, back to sort of normal, but a bit bigger and stronger now. Mm-hmm. But now I'm looking at some foods and now I start to feel a little bit guilty because I'm like, oh, that's not in my 1,600 or 1,800 calories for the day. I've gone a little bit over. Mm-hmm. So the relationship I've sort of gotten with food now is if I have a 2.5 or 3,000 calorie day, the next day I'll have 1,000. Yep. Do you reckon that's an unhealthy habit or do you think that's fine?
No, I think when we're looking at the changes in body composition, we need to be probably paying more attention to what's happening across the total week or even the month, because in terms of fat loss or fat gain, there's not much happening on a day-to-day basis, right? And when we look at a kilo of body fat, that stores around 7,700 calories. Yeah. So when you start to get into the maths of the equations of how much you need to be in a deficit below your baseline, you can start to have a realistic expectation on how quickly you can either lose that fat or put on weight. And so again, if you spill over one day and you're diligent with your tracking of calories, then there's no harm in, sacrificing a few from the next day or even 2 or 3 days to level the playing field, if you will. Is it the perfect scenario? Probably not, because you're taking away food that could be fuel for your next day's training or recovery, but you're dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I tried to do so I weigh myself every morning, but then what I weigh that sort of every Monday or Tuesday is what I call sort of the true weight, or you just have it at weekly average.
Do the weekly average.
Because I could weigh myself every single day, have the same food, but one day be more and then less. And it's like, hang on, So I've sort of had that mental battle as well, not to get discouraged. If I just follow the process, I know it's working. Mm-hmm. And I lost probably over 15 kilos in 3 months, or I lost around 15 kilos in 3 months. I was losing around 1 kilo a week, doing everything properly, and I was having around 10,500 calories a week. Yep. Not sure what my deficit was because I was having 1,500 a day, but I just felt so much better.
Well, you would, just by losing the weight, right? And it doesn't, even when we look at people that are obese or just very overweight, whether they lose their weight by eating really clean foods or whether they lose their weight eating donuts but restricting, staying within a calorie amount, when we look across their pathology, just by losing the weight, they're going to improve. Is it going to serve them long term with no reference to food quality? They're probably going to run into some issues from nutrient deficiencies and so forth. But for the short term, the fact that you've lost weight is going to dramatically improve your health markers and probably subjective perceived level of, well-being.
Your quality of life, your happiness, your confidence, everything.
Yeah.
What would you recommend then to somebody that is sort of a little bit overweight? They're really stuck in a rut. They do really good for 2-3 days, but then they sort of give up and relapse and have shit food or whatever it is. I've tried to sort of recommend people what I eat or anything like that, but then I find it's a bit like what you said. It's very subjective because my goals might be different to theirs. My time might be different to theirs. I might be able to walk more and that person can't. But that person might be able to have vegetables and I don't. So I've tried to sort of, because I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to give advice apart from personal experience. Would you be able to give any advice to somebody that is overweight trying to lose weight, or would you have to meet them first?
Look, it depends on what they're willing to commit to, right? Like you cannot complain about the results that you did not get for the work that you did not do, right? And your results are going to be directly correlated with your level of compliancy, right? And so whether you're calorie counting, whether you're eating clean, whether you're doing keto, whether you're doing carnivore, whether you're doing paleo, whatever any of these diet strategies may be, the number one factor that comes down to your probability of success is your compliance and how successful can you stick to the game plan. So it has to be in line with your personal preferences. But interestingly, you just sort of shared how you were 95 kilos or something and you're looking back on photos and you're, embarrassed or just weren't, loving how you looked. Pain is usually a better motivator for people than reward. So I can't make you give a fuck.
Yeah.
You
have to care enough to actually do it.
You have to care enough to do it because
it's like the saying you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink it.
And, I say to people that are either engaging in working with me as a coach and client relationship is you don't pay a builder to know how to hit a nail with a hammer. You pay him to know where to put the nail. Yeah. You got to do the fucking nailing.
Yeah, it's a great point because so many people think they can, that's okay, they can get the formula and then they follow it, but they might give up after a few days. And I found when I started the diet, the first 3-4 days was the hardest because that's when you get all the cravings. That's when you hop into bed at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock and you get really hungry. And I found myself eating ice blocks. Like I had a bowl of ice, put in the ice box, but I knew, forget about how I'm feeling now. Next tomorrow or in a week or in 2 weeks, I'll feel so much happier because I know if I eat something shit now, I'll just feel so much worse, so much more guilty for it and then wake up and be like, why did I do that?
There is a 2-3 week period that's very real, but you need to get over that hump. You can't expect to be feeling better just because you've decided to clean up your nutrition for the last 3 days. Yeah. It's going to, if you've been eating like a garbage truck for 3 years or 20 years, don't expect that to be a walk in the park after 3 days and be flying. But to your point of feeling shit when you then go off plan, that also is a really powerful experience that some people go through where, they've gone through maybe a 4-week period of abstinence from eating a food that they perhaps regularly consumed that isn't necessarily what we would say good for them. And then when they do have it again, they get quite a violent reaction because their body is almost resensitized to it. And, that often comes in the form of, bloating and digestive irritability and gas and brain fog or poor mood and whatever it may be, inflammation, right? And all of a sudden, it's now no longer a matter of discipline. It goes, fuck, I don't want that to happen again. Yeah. Because you become addicted to the newfound energy and you become your own motivator, like the object in motion stays in motion. It's getting, the hardest bit is starting and getting a little bit of wind behind your back.
Well, why do you think the topic fat loss specifically is probably the biggest topic in sort of the health and gym industry right now? You might have a different perspective from what I see, but from what I see every single day Is everyone just talking about fat loss, fat loss, fat loss? Do you think
Because
that's got
66% of people are
social
overweight
media?
in Australia.
Oh, you reckon? Yeah, nothing to do with social media. People trying to be fitter or healthier for social media.
What do you mean exactly for social media?
Well, I think a lot more people are either being on camera or want to be influencers or content creators, so they're on camera more, and because they're on camera or they're posting photos with their physiques or anything like that, that they are trying to go down these extreme paths for fat loss.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that when somebody is in physically good shape, they demand respect and authority, because we know that about that individual before I even speak to you or know anything about you. I know certain traits about you as a human because you are disciplined. You're not afraid of hard work. You can do things consistently. You know how to prioritize. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where, as I said, in a world where everybody's looking for, you know, the rarest or the most unique or whatever it may be, in a time where, as I said, 2 in 3 people in Australia are overweight, you just being in good shape puts you ahead of the... You get what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
You're straight away. Don't worry about your Gucci bag. Like, your Gucci bag doesn't look cool when you're, 40 kilos overweight. You look like a slob.
Do you think we are, as Australians, or our population is so overweight because of fast food, social media, laziness? There's no real cure, is there? It's up to the individual to actually make that change.
Yeah, well, when you look at, if you look at photos even from the 60s, of people on
the beach, they're all,
the classic example.
Yeah.
Everyone's in good shape.
Yeah,
right. It has been a negative trajectory since then. And when we look at, well, what's changed?
Diet,
right?
Processed food,
processed
cereal.
food, exactly. So the availability of it. So again, even without getting all hippie on it, but we were hunters and gatherers. Our food was provided to us by the earth, and there was periods of the year when animals would be scarce and animals would go into hibernation and food would be scarce. And if our metabolisms didn't have the ability to slow down, we would have suffered and we probably wouldn't be here. But, obesity didn't exist. And now there's no hunting or gathering. There's hardly even farming. If you don't even want to go to the supermarket, you can order on Uber Eats. You know what I mean? So the convenience is just on the top of people's priority list. And, you could even perhaps in more recent years start to discuss perhaps the cost of living and eating healthy being a little bit more difficult for some people to maintain, or even if it's just like, hey, maybe just because of the economy you're under greater financial pressures and doing longer hours, that then do you have the energy and time to be preparing good food? There's a million reasons.
And exactly what point you just brought up, like me and Kaya, we do our grocery shops and it's around $300-400 a week, and I'm thinking, how have I just spent $150 just on my dinners for meat? Because I have around 200 grams of eye fillet every night. That's what I have.
You still cooking them well done, or
I still cook on
you
extra.
wean back a little bit?
No, well, I first started eating steak, and when I first started eating steak in 2022, guess how I was having them?
Yeah, you were well cooking them.
They were like...
turning them into a rubber boot.
Yeah, turning into a rubber ball. I would put them in the oven for 40 minutes at like 220 degrees and would just leave it at that.
Where'd you get that advice from?
I know, Mum, that's just what Mum made me. That's what I would try. I ate it. Wow, that's pretty good. Then we leveled up from the oven and we started cooking in the pan. And then because I just love burgers, I tried to make my steak like a hamburger patty where it's just all the same color all the way through. So I started eating that. That was fine. The steaks.
So you were doing thin steaks?
No, that's still thick steaks. They were thick steaks, but I was trying to get the steak all the way through the same color as like a hamburger, like cooked.
Probably why you got such a nice George accent. Just all that chewing.
Thank you. Probably. I used to eat lots of Lego, so probably from all the Lego.
There you go.
But no, back to the steaks. Like, it is so expensive just to try and live healthy now and live and actually eat proper whole food. And processed food is so cheap.
Yep.
I don't even know how, like, you can't even suggest people to go to a butcher or anything like that. It's almost like it was made by design that healthier food was more expensive, whereas back in the day, healthier food would be cheaper or affordable.
Yeah, I don't know. Even with population growth, perhaps, trying to keep up with it.
Yeah.
But, myself included, and even some friends of mine, I know that they've gone, or even clients, they go the route of actually trying to buy direct.
Yeah.
Where if you can buy a whole cow,
Yeah.
you can get a whole cow where it probably comes down to be about probably $10 to $15 per kilo across the board. You obviously get every different cut of meat,
Yeah.
but there are some advantages to that as well if you look at it from even an ethical point of view, and obviously the financial point of view. But having the different cuts kind of forces you into a position where you need to learn some culinary skills and prepare different dishes with different cuts of meat. You know, like the eye fillet is the Rolls Royce, but you know there are some tougher parts of the cow, like, you know, whether it be oyster blade or whether it be the ossobuco or whether it be chuck steak. You know what I mean? But they're cheaper cuts that aren't as necessarily nice to be cooked on a pan, but they can be really good in slow cookers and make curries or, you know, whatever it may be.
What would be your favorite? Because I know you're big on your red meat.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you salt and pepper. You're massive. Is it tomahawks? I think you have. Are they?
I like all the steaks.
You
man.
like all
I like them
steaks?
all. I mix it up a little bit.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
What's the machine you use to cook it on though? Because it's not. Is it just a normal grill you use?
Mate, I just use a skillet. I just use an iron cast pan, and then I usually just cook it in beef tallow.
Yeah.
So that's the fat of choice. It's got a really high smoke point and obviously healthy as well. Gives it a nice sear and crust.
So my bad by using no oil. I just put mine straight on a pan.
Nah, but how does it come up?
Edible.
Edible?
I've sort of looked at my diet that I'm doing now. It's a diet.
Yeah.
Sure, it might not taste the best, but if I can eat it and I can eat it every day, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's sort of.
And I feel it's pretty lean.
Yeah.
So you could put a little bit of beef tallow or something on there just to make it.
I season it with
butter.
I season it with a bit of like
Butter makes everything taste better.
Butter, yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Mm.
What butter though would you recommend? Because there's seed oils.
Just make sure it's real
topic.
butter. Butter
Real
should have 3 ingredients:
milk,
cream, salt.
yeah.
So it's
Can you even buy that from the groceries now?
yeah, you can.
You can.
But the quickest bullshit detector is
If it says
if
oil
it comes
on
in a packet.
Okay.
If it comes in a tub, like with a lid.
Okay.
They're usually the ones, and if it says anything like spreadable or anything on there, you do. Just look at the ingredient list and you'll see that
canola,
only
sunflower
40% of it's actually butter and the rest is canola oil or sunflower oil, like you said. And so the ones that are actually just wrapped in paper, they're usually your best bet to be real butter.
Okay. And you can get them from IGAs and
you can.
everywhere.
You can. And I think
Where do you get
I think even like the big chain supermarkets like Coles and Woolies and stuff are improving.
Yeah.
Like they are paying attention to the trend, and I think there is a greater emphasis due to social media that you are seeing that people are more consciously aware of these things now, and are making efforts to cater to people's health preferences given its, you know, popularity. It's a growing industry, definitely.
Yeah. And starting a family, has that made you want to be a lot more focused on nutrition? Like were you growing up, were you ever focused on I need to have a certain amount of steak or anything like that?
Mate, nothing. It was not my parents' fault. They didn't know anything different. I ate really good food. Mum always prepared good foods, but you know, I used to eat 6 Weet-Bix for breakfast because that's what Brett Lee was doing.
Yeah.
And I used to top it off with a tablespoon of raw sugar on top.
Yeah.
And then I'd go off to school and I'd have sandwiches with white bread and I'd come home and eat pasta with cheese. And, you know, I wonder why I had concentration issues and was up and down like a yo-yo at times. So,
So since starting a family, have you definitely been a bit more sort of nutrition conscious on what you put into your baby's food? And will that be something
he's
that
not
as he
eating
grows
food
up?
yet.
Yeah.
But it is something that I definitely feel passionately about.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a cool opportunity to blend in a little bit of my personal life with my work and professional life and sort of demonstrate, hey, these are the foods that I'm actually going to feed my child because that's my act of love and, you know, me being the very best parent that I can because I'm setting him up for success. And I think so much of nutrition is habitual, right?
Yeah.
So it's breaking the habit of eating these bad foods. Like I kind of view it as like you can't miss something that you've never had, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I just thought of another point as well. You said you're up and down like a yo-yo when you're at school, and that you reckon was because of your diet.
I think it definitely was a contributing factor.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was hopped up on a lot of carbohydrates and a lot of sugar and had some concentration issues. I think if I was at school today, they'd be probably diagnosing me with ADD, ADHD, like every other kid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I put that down to environment as well. Like how many young boys are meant to be sitting behind a desk and cooped up inside all day. It wasn't the place for me.
Well, it was like it's probably been the only thing in the last over 100 years that has never changed with the advances of technology, with what we know about the world now and food and diet and the human body and the human mind. School in particularly is still the same it was 100 years ago as it was now. Hasn't changed a single bit. You wake up, you do your 8 hours or 7 hours, you get your 2 breaks, and then you're done.
And again, the world's changing, like especially with AI. Like it's almost impossible to avoid that conversation now. But school does a very good job at training you to become an employee.
Yeah.
It doesn't do a very good job, or it didn't for me, encouraging, I guess, individual thinking. But how many of those jobs that you're getting trained up for like become redundant? Like,
because of AI.
You might have told me that I was cheating because I copy and pasted something from Google. Could you not also just call that resourceful? Like, look at the world that we're in now. Like, so many of the way that we've had to do things, that information is available at the click of a finger. Yeah. And there's so many of the traditional jobs, for say, that perhaps will become redundant or at the very least dramatically change over the next 5 and 10 years.
And that's what, like, since ChatGPT's come out, I could literally see so many students just be using that for their schooling.
Yeah.
And like there would be, obviously the school probably doesn't want them to use it, but probably being able to use AI as a tool for good when you finish school would be a lot more beneficial than to not be using it when you're at school for certain subjects or maths. Like, for example, when I used to be at school, you weren't allowed to use a calculator for certain things, but it's like when you finish school, everyone's using a calculator.
Exactly. And so it sort of becomes a memory test, right?
So it becomes a memory test, and it's almost, why wouldn't at school they teach us habits for the real world at school?
Well, there's so many things they don't teach you, right? Like we don't learn anything about money management and taxes and stuff that you actually really need to know when you step out into the real world. I certainly haven't been using many of my lessons from geography class. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And would you ever go back to sort of Tasmania to raise your sort of family, or are you happy in Melbourne, do you think?
Oh, mate, it's funny you say that. I think if you asked me 2 years ago, the answer would be absolutely not. No way will I ever move home. And I've maybe carried around a little bit of a negative association with Tassie just because of some of my childhood experiences, and I was very keen to get out of there and get to Melbourne and sort of start fresh in a place where I didn't feel like all eyes were on me and no one knew me, and I could sort of just sink into the big city and, you know what I mean, and hide. But with that being said, it is a really beautiful place, and it has a lot of advantages and is cool to grow up. Everyone's quite close. It's not, it's easy to get around. And my family are there, and my little sister, she just had a baby as well 4 weeks ago. Yeah. So, when I think about cousins and my sisters and my family and even my parents getting a little bit older, it has started to sort of speak to me a little bit about the possibility of maybe moving back home one day. But right now, the feasibility of that doesn't exist because my business is here with Jungle in Paran, and until there's other options, my hands are tied. But I would, I'm not going to say never.
You got recently married. Was that in Tasmania as well, was it?
No, we didn't get married in Tassie. We got married in Byron Bay.
Oh, was that Byron Bay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got married last year. Yeah. I guess pretty quickly after we're trying for the kid, and hence little Alfie joined us about 3 months ago.
Well, mate, thank you so much for coming on. Sorry if we went on to all 2 different topics. But mate, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated you telling me your story, and I learned a lot about nutrition and advice. And I need to try beef tallow on my steak.
Use it for cooking, mate. You'll get a nice sear and crust.
And butter with only 3 ingredients.
Might even be 2, milk and salt.
Milk and salt.
All
right.
That's it.
Jack,
legend.
Thank you so much for coming on, mate.
Thank you, man.
Sorry if that took up too much of your time.
Not at all.